Hello again, everybody. Welcome into the Two Pad Stack, episode 53. We're back, baby, and we got some regular season games to break down today. Very excited to go into it. Got some good, got some bad, the ups, the downs, but hockey's back, baby, and can't wait to break it down. Alongside me, once again, Jake Reiser. Jake, how's it going today, buddy?
I'm all right. It's been quite the week. A lot of news, a lot of busy things, a lot of good games. I'd say there were lots of games. Maybe not a lot of them were good, but certainly a lot of things to focus on this week. How about you?
Yeah, it's been good, man. It's today I took the day off. I actually drove down and visited the wonderful TD Garden for a matinee tilt that could have maybe ended a little bit more an appropriate way as far as I'm concerned. But we'll break down that later. But had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. It's becoming peak leaf peeping season, so I could really do without all these people driving up into my wonderful home state of New Hampshire and clogging up our roads. I ended up having to drive 2.5 hours up to Berlin, New Hampshire for my daughter's first ever road trip for hockey. So that was a lot of fun. Once again, though, the leaf peepers, man. As soon as you got to North Conway, I was in traffic for like 45 minutes, and I wasn't stopping in North Conway despite everyone else doing that. I had to drive through it, so it was really a pain in the rear end. But had a great time up there. Kids had a great time. Collected our first 2 wins of the season, which is a lot of fun as well. My daughter ended up scoring her first 4 goals, not just
Ooh.
one, not just two, but she doubled up and tallied 4 goals in her first roadie there. So it was a lot of fun. Um, just happy that it's fall and hockey's here, man. It's the best time of the year as far as I'm concerned.
Amen. Look at that stat line, though. Good for your daughter. That's got to be a big confidence boost.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I definitely confess we had a bit of a ringer from the XL team, which is the higher skill one. One of the older brothers ended up coming up and playing with us, and had to have a conversation with him, like, hey, we know you're the best one out there. Why don't we look to go ahead and set up some nice passing plays and help your teammates look a little bit better? And he was a good sport about it. So it was a great time. Kids had a good time. That's all that matters. And it was so funny at the end of the game. My daughter looks at me and she's like, "Man, it was so nice that we drove 2.5 hours for the best day ever." I was like, yeah, because I can only imagine your attitude if it didn't go the right way. Like driving 2.5 hours to get smoked would not have been a wonderful time. But yeah, it's a great start. Any fun things that you did this weekend, Jake?
I had the holiday this weekend. Shana Tova and Gamar Chatima Tova to all of our Jewish listeners for the Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So I was with my aunt and uncle out in Needham, just out in the Boston suburbs, and then we drove down and broke the fast with my grandfather down in Providence. So really nice to see the family this weekend. Met a little surprise date with the girlfriend last night, so that was
Ooh,
good. I was just a little fun.
nice, nice. What was the date?
I just went over. We made dinner together. And we watched a movie. I think we needed to chill together, but I think we're at that point finally where it's just we don't have plans. Let's just hang out. So it's fun. All
Absolutely.
in good
Nothing wrong with
spirits.
that. Yeah. Yeah, until you've been married 12 years and then you're like your idea of getting out is leaving the wife at home and getting out and hanging out with your I'm just kidding. I love you, Amanda. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and break down some Bruins hockey?
I
So,
mean, it sounded
the
like your daughter needs to step in for Martian or Zaka at this
yeah,
point.
yeah. Yeah, I think that I think she's got a name for herself on the Boston Fleet eventually, but
Yeah.
we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But so last time we talked to everybody here, all of our listeners, um, the regular season hadn't even started yet. So good news, guys. Bruins hockey's back. Didn't start off so good. So Bruins opened up the season on the road. They were facing the evil empire, Florida Panthers. They're raising the banner. They're doing their, welcome to everybody. Here's your Florida Panthers. Let me do our intros, all that kind of stuff. So obviously the Panthers were really, really high and they were ready to come out and they took it to the Boston Bruins. I mean, they outshot the Bruins 17-12 in the first period. Honestly, I'm surprised the Bruins even managed to collect 12 shots that period. It didn't look like it when I was watching that game. And they were beating them physically, they were beating them mentally, they were beating them skill wise. It looked like a tale of two different teams and almost like they were in different leagues entirely. Um, what were your thoughts on how that game kind of opened up, Jake?
Yeah, the ending box score of 6-4 is not indicative of the way the game went. That a
Yeah.
lot of those Bruins goals are garbage time goals. You're right. They got beat every which way possible. Mentally, physically, you could see the Bruins were completely rattled, really just absolutely frustrated in every which way. The defense looked terrible. Corpusalo, I wanna give Corpy the benefit of the doubt, but he also looked really bad. It was
Mm.
just, like, anything that could go wrong did go wrong for the most part in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, as a card carrying member of the goaltenders union, I don't want to blame the goalie. I don't like being that guy, but he definitely seemed like he was out to lunch on a couple of those goals. And, I can't, like I said, I can't firmly put the responsibility on his shoulders because they were a lot of missed assignments and everything in that game. I mean, when the first period ends and you're down 3, it's not going to be,
Mhm.
exclusively on the goaltender. Like the entire
Yeah,
team wasn't ready to play that game. But,
yeah.
like Jake mentioned, they crawled, they, you know, clawed back into the game. Final score was 6-4. Um, had old friend AJ Greer running around like a little bit of a schmuck. It feels like the Florida Panthers seem to be collecting bottom 6 Bruins. They got Jesper Boquist over there, Thomas Noshek, who wasn't healthy, but he's now a Florida Panther. AJ Greer. It's it's apparently if you can beat them, you still join them. Or they're taking the stance if they can't beat the Panthers, they're gonna join them. But yeah, that sucked. Started off the season 0-1. But you turn the page, you head to TD Garden, you look for what happens next, and what better to ail the you know to correct what's ailing them than a visit from Les Habitants de Montreal for the home opener. I can't remember a home opener with the Montreal Canadiens in recent memory, at least. I can't even tell you when the last time that happened was.
I think it's, like, early 2000s is the last time that we've opened at home against the Habs, so it's definitely been a good decade and a half, if not more.
Yeah, well, it was fun. Both Jake and I were in the house. I brought my uncle who's never seen a Boston Bruins game, so that was quite the show for them to put on. I feel like that first period, once again, like Bruins either like just don't get it going or things just kind of blow up because that first period was wild in that Montreal game. At the end of the first, Boston outshot them 13-6. It's important to note, I think, too, before we break into it more, that the Habs are on the second half of a back to back, so they were just coming off a huge win, 1-0 shutout by Sam Montembeault against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So Habs looked a little slow out the gate. Bruins outshot them 13-6, but at the end of the first, the score was 3-2 Boston. Like that's like an end of the game score line, not like after 20 minutes. So the Bruins have seemed to be very active, both in a poor way and in an offensive way in first periods so far this season.
It was my girlfriend's first actual Boston Bruins game. She's been to a bunch of P Bruins games before, but not at the Garden. And we left the game. We were walking out of the Garden, and she says, the only thing I didn't see was a fight, but otherwise, that was a really great hockey game overall. And I got to agree with her there. That crazy first period you're talking about, absolutely. First off, the goal 2 minutes in that then gets wiped out for a somehow successful goaltender interference
I
challenge.
don't
Like,
even understand
I
that.
don't I don't even understand how that happens anymore. I thought we didn't have a definition for goaltender interference, but I guess Wes McCauley apparently knows what it is. And then we go down, we come back, they tie it up really quickly, then we go back up. It was just such a back and forth affair, and again, we put up a 3-goal lead up 5-2, and then we let them back in a little bit. But the game just had so much excitement. It was entertaining from start to finish. One of those games. You're right. It ails your wounds. It kind of, washes away the sins of that Florida game and should absolutely give everybody a lot of confidence, especially someone like Jeremy Swayman, who didn't have a preseason. I'll give my little credit to BU again for whatever training that was, but that's still not a real preseason. He didn't get actual game action until Thursday night. And some of the goals I'd say he'd want back, but he looked decent enough overall.
Yeah, and we got some more of the Swayman shenanigans too. Like he was getting into it with Nick Suzuki, who was
Yeah.
right outside of his crease, and he gave him the whole like matrix, like, come on, bring it. And I know so many people hate it. I love the theatrics. It's entertainment. And that's the guy that you got signed for the next 8 years. And he's going to be mixing it up. And we'll talk about more of that a little later on. Some good other notes about this game to bring up is that we saw a couple of firsts in the black and gold. We saw Mark Kastelik, who I called as soon as we had the Linus Ullmark trade news come in, that this guy's going to be a Boston Bruins fan favorite. He had his, not just his first, but his first and second goals in the black and gold. And man, that first one was an absolute snipe in the first period. Like just bar down with a little bit of traffic. Like I saw that shot and I was like, are we sure that that's not like friggin' I don't know, like Patrick Kane with that snipe? Like it was mind-boggling. It's not something I would have expected out of Kastelik. And additionally, Elias Lindholm scored his first goal as a Boston Bruin in that in the second period. No, that was in the first period as well to make it 3-2. So a couple of awesome firsts. That was a slick little redirect in the slot. Something that, and once again, I know that it's really taboo. But and I'm not directly comparing him, but that goal that Elias Lindholm had is very similar to a lot of the goals that Patrice Bergeron had, just by being in the right place, right time, getting a slick little deflection on it, and it manages to go in. So,
Yeah,
um,
those like high to mid slot deflections. That's a
yeah,
right-handed shot from the point. Like that
yep.
felt like a lot of Bergie's bread and butter.
Yeah, and working it in the bumper like Bergie did. So really, really optimistic. But it was a fun time. I got involved in the ole 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 mocking chants as we're walking out. So it was a good way to kind of continue the season and move on from that pooper of a game against the Florida Panthers. So
I actually ended
um,
up bumping into Red Sox reliever Liam Hendricks on the way out. So
oh yeah,
yeah, look at some other Boston athletes coming in and looking at the bees throughout the season.
yeah. Veritek was at the game today.
He looked like he was having a blast.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We'll break down today's game as well. Moving on. I wasn't able to watch this game live because once again I was driving 2.5 hours home after our triumphant victory in Berlin, New Hampshire. But the Boston Bruins had a matinee till against the Los Angeles Kings. So the one time the LA Kings will be visiting TD Garden this season. Um, and it was a low scoring affair. It was definitely a muck and grind type game. And I do think that that's kind of synonymous with what LA's DNA is. They're a very strong, stout defensive system. They don't really have high end scoring power. They're going to just grind you down. Probably the biggest bright light that they have right now would be Quentin Byfield, who's really starting to come into his own as a, power two-way centerman. But that was a little bit of a struggle for the Bruins at times. Were you able to watch the whole game live, Jake?
I was able to watch parts of it, but here's the gist of this game. I'm gonna defense you. No, I'm gonna defense you harder. You want to see what defense looks like? I'll show you what defense is like. I think the blue line had to be the big star of this one. Just they've got good offensive weapons too. Andre Kopitar is still chugging along.
Yeah.
Kevin Fiala is fantastic. You're talking
Yep.
about Quentin Byfield. Like they're not bad in the scoring department at all. And so for the defense to lock down and for Jeremy Swayman to lock down and only give up one goal, Trevor Moore is the only one who scored for LA there. Just I got to give the defense a lot of credit for what they did in Swayman, a huge amount of credit for
Yeah.
the way they stood tall. And, the overtime nightmare that was last year that we could never win and get that like pathetic loser point. That overtime was spectacular. I have to admit the overtime was spectacular. The game-winning goal from Pasta. Great defensive work and back checking and neutral zone work from Lowry and Patra. And then the little give and go between Pasta to Lowry, back to Pasta, crashing to the net. It just absolutely fantastic work all the way around. And I would love to see the Bruins actually succeed in overtime, just like they did on Saturday. But those are the type of plays you need. You need the good possessions. You need those give and goes, create those odd man chances.
Yeah.
You know, and again, stout defense too that just showed up in that overtime. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with that game. As much as it was a low offensive game all the way around, I'm happy with the way that went.
I mean, that was the DNA for the Boston Bruins last year. That's how they collected so many points, was playing strong defensive hockey. The Boston Bruins last year, they had a big hit on their offensive personnel. They didn't have, a lot of talent behind that top line. And, what they did against the Kings was really, a representation of how I felt the Bruins squeezed out points and a lot of them last year. So it was good to see. Like you'd mentioned, I think my big star, my big takeaway was that Jeremy Swayman looked like Jeremy Swayman, which I
Hmm.
was a little apprehensive and a little nervous of. But yeah, we're pretty happy with that game. I remember Pasta had quite the comment post game when they were interviewing him in the locker room, and he was like, "Oh God, I'm out here with these kids," because he's out there with
Patra
Patra,
and low
who's at
rye.
the end of his shift. Yeah, and Mason Lohrei out there. So Patra is gassed. He makes a savvy little backhand chop pass across the zone, maintains possession because here comes Mason Lohrei, or it was Pasta, and he dishes it over to Lohrei. Lohrei goes deep and then finds Pasta in the little soft area of coverage on the far side. And Pasta does this. He doesn't try to rip it high or roof it. He just does the slick little 5-hole finish, and Darcy Kemper couldn't track it. Um, Also have to give a shout out to Darcy Kemper because Kemper was pretty strong this game too. Kemper had a 923 save percentage this game, so it was a fun game to watch. And I wish I was able to pull up the highlights and everything and get a good summary of it. But happy to see the Bruins get the dub. Um, Fast forward to today. Bruins are 2-1. Florida Panthers, since they had that big emotional win against the Boston Bruins on opening night, they were in a little bit of a pickle. They lost Sasha Barkov to injury after a scary moment when he was racing back to try to protect an empty net from the Ottawa Senators. Gets tied up with Tim Stützle. They both go hard into the boards. Stützle kind of like gets his body between um, Barkov's leg, and when they go into the boards, he like crashes between Barkov's leg and the board. So whenever you see that, you fear the absolute worst. Barkov has to be helped off the ice. So I'm just waiting here. Like the guy's out for months. They dodge a bullet. They find out it's only week to week, but that means there's no Barkov for the Florida Panthers when they come to town here in Boston. And then it comes out pregame, obviously in Buffalo, Kachuk ended up being out with an illness. So there was some questionable reason to maybe wonder if he was going to be able to play. He can't go. So there's no Kachuk, no Barkov. And what does the Florida Panthers say? No Kachuk, no Barkov, no problem. They don't need it. We're in their heads. So Florida Panthers come in being 1-3 on the season and collect their second win of the season and second win against the Boston Bruins. And that was a 4-3 victory for the Panthers today. Um, what were your thoughts? I was in the house. I didn't hear some of the analysis that was provided by the broadcast team, but I just think that they're in their heads a little bit.
I think it was a sloppy game overall. I can't really give a good amount of stars to a lot of people because I don't think many people played well today. But you're right. I think that it's like kryptonite. It's like you put the Panthers on the ice against the Bruins and they shrivel up and turn into a very unrecognizable team. Granted, there were moments that were frustrating. There was the missed call on AJ Greer by David Pastrnak that Greer kind of, I don't know if we wanted to call it a boarding or a cross-checking or something like that, but he got Pasta in the numbers along the boards and should have been a penalty there. And then they call McAvoy for a cross-check, I want to say maybe 30 seconds later. And it's just, the game got really nasty after that. And I think when the game gets nasty, I think the Bruins lose their focus and they lose their basics. And, it's easy to pounce on mistakes like that. And Florida did just enough.
Yeah, and I actually have a fun fact for you. So when Pasta got, I'll call it a board. I'll be that guy. I think
Yeah.
it was a board. He saw numbers all the way and he finished his hit. It was a board. And we saw Pavel Zacha jump in and make AJ Greer answer the bell. Now, obviously, Pavel Zacha is not really a fighter. He
Mm.
has that was his second career fighting major. And I'm gonna throw something at you here. I don't expect you to answer it, but I'm gonna still ask the question just to see. Do you know who Pavel Zacha fought in his first career fight? And I'll give you a hint. Current Bruin.
Current Bruin. Well, Zaka's been around for at least 6 years, so
Yep.
it's not gonna be one of the it's not gonna not the younger guys. I'm not going Freddie. Um,
I'll give you more of a hint.
mhm.
Another situation where he was protecting a teammate.
Another situation who's jeez, who is this?
The new guy on the blue line. Big old fellow.
Nikita Zadorov?
Yeah.
Wow.
Zacha fought Nikita Zadorov for his first ever NHL fight. So I heard that today and I was like, that is a great little fun fact. I'm gonna share that on the pod. So
Enemies to lovers.
yep, absolutely. But yeah, so once again, I gotta shout out the fourth line in this game. Johnny Beecher got it started for the Boston Bruins, went up 1-0 for the Bees. Unfortunately, the Panthers answered back quickly. End of the first, 2-1 Florida. Going to the second. Brandon Carlo gets the crowd going. Great job activating. Found a soft spot in the ice. Absolutely roofed it. Just TD Garden blew up when that goal went in. It was a vibe in there, that's for sure. And then I don't know what the hell they were doing. Okay, I confess, I walked away to go take a leak. I didn't see this goal, but well, we're standing. I'm standing at the urinal, and all of a sudden I hear the oh. Then you hear Ron Poster take over. Dun 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 dun. That's when everybody's like, "Damn it!" So, what happened with that shorthanded goal?
Not good things. Just
Not good things.
that's all I've got to say. Just not good things in general. Just such a lack of focus in general. Um.
Yeah,
Oh, this was the Reinhardt one that
yeah.
so Pasta lost or not Pasta. Patra lost it along the boards. It turned into a 2-on-1 with I want to say
Lindholm was
Boquist,
back.
and then it just became a sea of chaos in front of the net.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think there was a case for goaltender interference on this one. I think it was Carlo or Lindholm who kind of runs into Swayman and the puck's sitting in the blue paint and Reinhardt's right there to put it home. So just a case of, really good back checking by Reinhardt turns into an on-man rush, turns into some chaos.
Yeah, and I just watched the clip of it. I mean, that's a young player mistake. It's going to happen. And those are the
Yeah.
growing pains that you have with Matty Patra. He has been probably one of the most dynamic and most reliable forwards that I've seen in the middle six, top nine so
Yeah.
far. So I'm okay with it. But yeah, that was definitely a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow there. And then on top of that, Anton Lundell scores shortly after to make it 4-2. So it becomes a multi-goal lead for the Florida Panthers. And honestly, at this point, I'm like, here we go again. It feels just like what happened down there in Sunrise.
It's
But
ridiculous.
the kids are all right. Mason Lohrei comes down and makes a beautiful, he does a little head fake, little shimmy, gets some separation, and he comes down and he roofs it over Sergei Bubtitsky. Just a beautiful, beautiful shot. And it reminded me of kind of like, obviously a little bit better of an angle, but that same kind of high shot that he beat him in the postseason with that went right over the shoulder. So,
Yeah, that's very similar indeed. I'll give a lot of credit to Lowry, who got healthy scratched for the home opener, and
mhm,
he's come back the last 2 games and looked really good.
yeah,
That can screw with a kid's head. It's not in Monty's MO generally. He likes to play the young kids, but um it feels like a Bruce Cassidy move, in all honesty, to sit a young kid so early, but it clearly worked in his favor, and low rise looked great. Patra's looked fantastic. He's
so
looked
good.
dynamic. There will be those growing pains like we talked about on that shorty, but
Yep.
he's looked consistent across every single game, and a creative, high hockey IQ, a threat in most places on the ice. I've been really impressed with Matty Patra all the way around.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good time to probably send it over to our sponsors for this season before we move over to the next segment. We're going to break down the week to come. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. This season, the Two Pad Stack podcast is proudly supported by two fantastic local businesses. First, we're going to give a shout out to Earth Eagle Brewings, where great beer meets great company. With locations in both Portsmouth and Somersworth, New Hampshire, Earth Eagle is something for everybody. Whether you're relaxing in their Portsmouth beer garden or enjoying live music and trivia at the Somersworth pub, you'll be in good hands with their craft beers, epic hot dogs, and much more. And don't forget, if you're into brewing your own beer, their homebrew shop has you covered in Somersworth. And when it comes to tattooing, there's no better place than Vital Ink Tattoo in Barrington, New Hampshire. The artists at Vital Ink are all about turning your ideas into tattoos you'll love forever. The team works hard to make sure every visit is comfortable, and their dedication to making your tattoo experience fun and relaxing is unmatched. Whether you're getting your first piece or adding to your collection, Vital Ink is the place to go. Special thanks to both of these sponsors for supporting the Two Pad Stack podcast this season. Be sure to check them out and show them some love. All right, so moving forward, looking forward, by the time we talk to you guys next for episode 54, we'll have a couple new games to break down. Only two. Why only two, Ace? Why why won't we have more games to talk about? Well, the Bees are going to be hitting the road, and I honestly think that this is a good thing for them. There's nothing better than a good roadie with the team to really build team camaraderie, build some relationships. We got some new faces in there. They've got to get to know each other and everything like that. But unfortunately for us Bruins fans, if you like to watch every game, I hope you're going to be, ready for some caffeine in the mornings because they're going out west. It's not as bad as it could be. It's not all the way in the Pacific time zone, but the Boston Bruins are going to be heading out to play the Colorado Avalanche on the 16th. So that is on Wednesday. They will be in Colorado. So that should be a really fun game to watch, I think. The Avalanche are always a really good team out in the West Conference, usually considered one of those upper echelon teams with Dallas and Vegas and Edmonton. But it
They
really
got a
seems like
problem though.
they sure do. What's their problem, Jake?
We're called two pad stack for a reason. It's the guys with the pads that are having massive issues in Colorado between Alexander Georgiev and Eustace Anunin. They are having a massive problem. I think Georgiev gave up 3 goals on 13 shots in his last game in Poland, and Anunin didn't do any better. I know my Avalanche friends are in a big tizzy, and they don't know what to do. And I know that Avalanche Twitter is in absolute chaos right now, where their fans want to trade for John Gibson from Anaheim. I know one of the Altitude sports writers tweeted out facetiously, I know I could trade for Gibby. What about Jordan Binnington? And got absolutely kicked the crap out of on X. But between the pipes, they are having a wicked, wicked, wicked issue right now.
Yeah, it begs the question, I think that Nathan MacKinnon's a great leader, and I think that they're going to be too good to continue this slide. But how much money is too much money up front? You see the same problem with the Edmonton Oilers, who are also on a very bad start to their season. We're not going to talk about them because we're not going to play them on this trip. But, how much money is too much money up front? Like, other than Cale Makar, who are their top, obviously Devon Taves is also a good defenseman. Probably, that's actually a really good top pair. But who's your second pair guys? Who's your third pair guys? I don't see it. I don't think Sam Girard's a good NHL defenseman. I think he's a good power play specialist. I just don't see it. And if you don't have a good stout defense that you can rely on, you can't expect goalies like Alexander Georgiev to really save your bacon there, because the Colorado Avalanche are looking at opportunities to really save as much money as they can because they have so much money tied up in Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon. And actually, speaking of Mikko Rantanen, I don't know if you saw this, Jake, but did you hear that Rantanen told the Avs brass that he wasn't going to be talking about a new extension until the season was done?
I mean, that's not uncommon for a lot of players to do. It's like once the season starts, just get anything contract wise out of your head. Don't really think about it. But that's not great for someone who's one of your best forwards to not have that necessarily front of mind. And maybe that's not great on Joe Sakic and the management from
No,
Colorado either to figure that out. So
no, he's not just one of their best forwards. He's one of the best forwards in the NHL, as far as I'm concerned. So to have that guy saying, I'm not going to talk to you, that's not giving me sunshine and rainbow vibes. Like, that's, you want to have a guy like that locked up yesterday and they should have done this in the offseason. They should have had this contract lined up already. It's I, here I'm gonna throw it out into the ether right now. Mikko Rantanen will be hitting UFA, and he's not going to be signing with the Avalanche. I think he's a UFA, right? Not RFA.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I ask you like you're supposed to know these things, Jake.
Exactly. Let's see that. It'll take 10 seconds to Google. I'm sure it'll be
Yeah,
really
I'm
easy.
googling it.
Ooh, UFA.
That's what I thought. Yeah, he's gonna cash in, and I don't think it's gonna be with the
He's already been
Avalanche.
playing on a cap hit of 9925, and with the cap going up and with the way he's been playing, how much higher is that going to go?
You just imagine how much he'll get in the unrestricted market, like UFA marketplace for a player like that. He'd be one of the best free agents that have hit the market in a long, long, long time. I could see him getting
Mhm.
14 easily.
Oh yeah. Well, we're not.
So
That's not the only high AAV contract we're talking about right now. Supposedly with goaltenders. I'll make a quick little pivot to the New York Rangers and Igor
yeah,
Shesterkin.
yep,
That he apparently with like a 12 in front of anything. I heard the rumor that it's going to be like 8x12-5 or something like that, but none of that has been confirmed by a true insider. But regardless, he's going to have a crazy goalie contract.
yeah. Well, we said it earlier when we were talking about the Sway negotiations that Igor Shesterkin is the guy to reset the market. He's going to reset the UFA goalie market because he has the tenure, he has the pedigree, and he's doing it again. I mean, hell, I think I read something like his shutout win to open the Rangers season is the first time in like 67 years that a Rangers goaltender has gotten a shutout on opening night. So, like, he is him for the Rangers. You take away Igor Shesterkin, that team looks significantly different. So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, rest of the week coming up, guys. Colorado on the 16th. That's Wednesday. And then on Saturday at 9 p.m. against the Utah Hockey Club,
The
which,
undefeated Utah Hockey
yeah,
Club.
yeah, led by Clayton Keller. He's their captain over there.
Capital C, Captain Clayton Keller.
That's right. Yeah. So,
Well, they
by the
got some
way,
other guys on there too who are super interesting.
Dylan Gunther is a
Barrett
freak.
Hayton and Dylan Gunther, I think, have scored in every single game for them so far. They just look,
Sergachev looks good.
yeah, they needed a leader on that blue line, and Sergachev is clearly doing what he needs to. Connor Ingram looks great in net for them. The
Yep.
offense has a lot of balance. They're a really, really interesting team, and I'm not going to fault the market. I'm sure Arizona has and had passionate enough fans, but sometimes a change of scenery does you good. And
Yeah.
we see that sometimes with free agents that, maybe they just need a new club and that's it. Maybe the new club just needed a new location because they have looked like a completely different team. They feel like with a
Yeah.
completely different identity. And it's been really, I've been staying up to watch because it's been super fun to watch them so far.
Yeah, they have been a treat to watch. And I mean, you saw flashes of that in Arizona, but I mean, it also like it's good to play for a team that you genuinely feel like the owners invested in. And the ownership group over there in Utah, Ryan Smith and his wife, they are heavily invested. They are at the games. They are out in the media. They are talking about their team. They are engaging with the fans. So I mean, playing for a boss that wants you to be successful, that means a lot. I'm going to go and work harder in the trenches if I care about my boss. I'm not a capitalist asshole that wants to go down that road or talk about that kind of crap. But having somebody that's signing the check that actually cares means something, and I think you're seeing some of that from the Utah Hockey Club, which I've heard from multiple sources. I think Clayton Keller and then even their GM Armstrong kind of publicly hinted that they're going to be the Yeti next year. So I'm really hoping that they can get rid of this damn Utah Hockey Club moniker sooner
They
rather
will.
than later.
I think again, they were drinking information through a fire hose here, and so I think they needed to work through the trademark, work through the design. If it's Yeti, I think that's interesting. I'd also think Mammoth would be cool, but um, another mythological creature or animal of some sort is going to be really fun. I think they can have a lot of fun with a mascot. With the colors certainly work, the jerseys. At that point, maybe they're just going to look like Winnipeg Ice jerseys,
I was
which
about to say that. Yeah.
they're great. They're great jerseys. Don't get me wrong, but
All I can think of is like the meme. You made this. I made this.
yeah. So really exciting all the way around, though. Utahs are going to be a really fun club. That's going to be a tough matchup for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. New segment, and I think we're gonna roll with this moving forward on a weekly basis. Courtesy of Jake, it was his idea. I'll give him all the credit. We're gonna come up with a stud or a star. I like stud and a dud. We're gonna roll with that. Stud and a dud of the week. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pick one player. We're not gonna pick the same players. We're gonna talk about a Boston Bruin that is a standout player playing very, very well as far as we're concerned. Stats or whatever can be cited or not. It could just be an eye test thing. Whatever. It's our show. We make up the rules. And then we're gonna also come up with a dud. Somebody that really just needs to step it up a bit. Somebody that we want to see more out of. So we're gonna give you guys our stud and the dud of the week each week. For the inaugural stud and the dud, Jake, because it was your idea, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, happy to do that. Um, for my stud of the week, I've been back and forth between one of two guys, but I gotta give credit where credit is due for a big gap that the Bruins had last year that they had to fill. Elias Lindholm is gonna be my stud of the week. I think he's looked solid. Um, Again, nobody said he's a straight up number one center, but he's playing like he wants to be. And nobody's trying to compare him to Bergeron, but he's playing with that same type of quality. We talked about that goal that looked Bergie-esque. With that, his 200-foot game is strong. He's already got 5 points, 2 goals, and 3 assists. He had the only goal in regulation against the LA Kings in their overtime victory. I think he's looked really good overall. And maybe that's more eye test. I know his face-off stats are slightly under 50%, but that doesn't necessarily concern me a ton right now. I think what concerns me more is chemistry. He had a beautiful assist on the Zacha shorthanded goal to kick off the season in Florida. I know Pastrnak has scored a little bit, but I think that the chemistry he's going to try and form with Zacha and Pasternak's looking good so far. I think special teams, he's looked good in the bumper position. He's looked good rotating along the boards as well, or going down in that kind of Gretzky's office area. I've been really happy to see that type of a player on the Bruins in a top 6 role. We haven't had that since Bergeron 2 years ago. And, it was a big fight amongst the fan base versus the ownership group last year. Who's that number one center? Who's that number one center? We need that. They didn't do it. They realized it. They made it for their mistake, and it looks like it's paying off for me so far. So Elias Lindholm is my stud of the week, and my dud. Trent Fredericks had a rough start. I know he got that garbage time goal in Florida, but he's also a -7, and that's just
Ooh.
absolutely brutal. I know that plus minus isn't always the best
Yeah.
indicator for who's having a good game and who's not, but that's just absolutely brutal. I think he, amongst a number of other Bruins, are forcing it a little bit. I'll give it a little nod to Brad Marchand, who I think is trying to force it a little bit. It's like when he came back from injury a couple of years ago and just things look a little off. His hands and his hips and his feet just aren't
Yeah.
in sync. But I will give Marchand the benefit of the doubt for a little bit because he didn't have a traditional preseason. Freddie did. Freddie should be ready to go right now, and I'm just not seeing it exactly from him right now. So, sorry to Trent Frederick Lover on Twitter. I believe you follow me, but he's my dud of the week. I think he's got to step it up a little more.
Yeah, he was also in the media today or yesterday talking about the upcoming matchup with the Florida Panthers. And he's talking about Matthew Tkachuk, who they are both from the St. Louis area. So
Mhm.
that he said, maybe we can reconcile when our careers are over. But right now, I do not like that guy. So, well, whatever. All right. I like those picks. Those are good. I'm gonna give you my picks now for my stud of the week. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about our new friend from Ottawa, Mark Kostelik, who has been absolutely electric since coming from the coming to the Bruins in that Linus Ullmark deal. Mark Kostelik has a stat line of 2 goals and 3 assists. He's been a big part of that fourth line with Beecher, Kepke, and they are just I think I saw like a stat that was put out there on X that said that they were one of the highest expected goals like generation line in the entire NHL right now. Like they are just making it work. And it's so funny because they're 2 players that really, I thought maybe I didn't even have Kepke making the lineup. Like I had him in Providence. I thought he was definitely bound for Providence. But I had Kostelik as like a 13th forward type scenario. He would go on against strategic matchups. This guy is just a buzzsaw, and I am loving his game. He's generating offensively, which is all just cash money on the top. He is mixing it up. He's mucking, he's grinding. He got a fight already. Like this guy is, in a town that is considered to be, lunch pail, blue collar, which you can make in the discussion about that these days. But Mark Kostelik is a Bruins Bruin. And he has been a fun guy to watch, and he's my stud of the week. So shout out to Mark. I know you definitely listen. I know you do, Mark. So shout out to you. My dud of the week. The Boston Bruins need to get more out of their top six. They need to. They have to. Jim Montgomery said the same post game today. The bottom six is doing their job. The top six is not. And I think a big perpetrator in that is the mayor, Charlie Coyle. At your size, you've got to be doing more. Like, you've got to be. You got 5.5 mil in the bank each year, and you are being tapped on to be that second line center. You did wonderfully last year in the 2C role. You did a great job. You filled in admirably. We need you to step it up here, Charlie. You're not doing it for me. Charlie Coyle, stat line as of today after 4 regular season games: 0 goals, 0 assists, -5. Once again, plus minus isn't a great indicator of individual performance, but it's an indicator that when Charlie Coyle's on the ice, we're not scoring and the other team is. So read into it what you will. I need more from Charlie Coyle if the top six is going to get going. We can't rely on Elias Lindholm to carry all the heavy weight in the top six in the center spot. And honestly, frankly, if Charlie Coyle continues at this pace, I want to see Matt Poitras at 2C. I want to see Matt Poitras with Brad Marchand. And please not Morgan Geeky. Like, I love you, Geeks, friend of the show. You're a third line guy. Get him on the third line, and then get somebody on that second line right wing. Whether that's Tyler Johnson, who's sitting there waiting for his PTO, or if that's calling up Fabian Lysell, whatever. We need somebody on that second line right wing to help get Charlie Coyle going, or get Matty Poitras up there and put Coyle on that mucking, grinding third line that might be able to wake up Trent Frederick there too. So, but yeah, Charlie Coyle, you're my dud of the week. Love you, buddy. Do better.
I want to go back to your star of the week here, because I'd almost just expand that to the whole fourth line. Kostelik, freaking awesome. First off, a face-off percentage of 58.6% for Kostelik. We talked about it in the preseason.
Yeah.
We've talked about it tonight already. He's been a buzzsaw. He brings the energy. He brings the grit, but he brings the hockey smarts. He's playing contributive hockey. He's not just like a Sean Thornton out there, I'm going to go out and muck things up. He's playing substantial, positive impact on the stat sheet hockey, and that matters just as much. So I'm super impressed with that. And how about Kepke, and how about Johnny Beecher? Speed, grit, momentum generation, the combination of that fourth line. During that home opener, pretty much anytime that fourth line was out there, the game was buzzing, the fans were loud, things were moving, things were hopping. The whole fourth line just really impressed me. And I'll make a good shout out to Cole Kepke here. You're right.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week in our opening night projections. We said it's either going to be Max Jones or Riley Tufte, and that Kepke was either going to be the 13th, or Kepke was going to be down in Providence. He's looked fantastic. He's held his own tremendously. So big shout out to that entire fourth line, Kostelik included, for having a phenomenal opening week so far.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The bottom six has been great, and I would actually just say the fourth line has been great. I would say the third line hasn't been fantastic, but yeah, Kepke's been amazing. He's already outproduced his career high with the Boston Bruins. He played like 30 games with the Lightning last year, and I think he got like a total of 2 points the entire time, and he's already got much more than that. So, yeah, super happy with that. One thing before we wrap, we're gonna probably close it a little earlier today, guys. Is I want to talk about the special teams for the Boston Bruins. No, I will give a big shout out to the PK. I think the PK has been very, very sharp. We are maintaining the Boston Bruins are maintaining their structure. They're making smart plays. Very, very, very sharp. But what on earth is going on with this power play? Like, I know that we had times last year the power play was struggling a bit, but I don't get it. Like, it seems like the top line is just, they're all too stationary. They're forcing passes. And it's not until the second power play unit comes out that we seem to be generating any, shots with purpose at all.
I'm seeing lots of passes in feet or passes on toes of sticks, nothing really concrete. That it looks a lot very sloppy. I don't know whether they have to get reused to the system. What is it? Jay Leach is running the power play now, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I don't know if they're having to get reused to that system. I don't know if they're having to get reused to having a true bumper that Lindholm is, but it's just looked rough. Um, I will put some pressure. I know I might have said he looked really good this week too. Charlie McAvoy, I think, is starting to put up the offensive numbers to actually be in Norris consideration, because that's become the offensive defenseman award, which is unfortunate. I want a defenseman's award, but um, I'll put pressure on Charlie McAvoy there. You're supposed to be the quarterback of power play one, and it's not running right now. It's not humming. Um, Figure it out. I
Right.
don't know whether that's uh working on rotations more with Pasta flipping to his offside or Pasta flipping to the point and McAvoy loading up for Bear on the one timer. Um, I see this a lot. I watched some Tampa highlights. I want to see Elias Lindholm look a lot more like Braden Point. I
Mm.
think I saw it in the Flyers game too, that I want to see him act like Travis Konechny. That bumper, they do this 1, 2, 3 from the boards down to like Gretzky's office, right down to the goal line. Bing, bang, boom, tic tac, goal right in front of the net. Like, they need to compress the offensive zone. That's probably the whole point that I need to see. I think I see them work from so far wide, and the way you succeed, especially on special teams, on the power play like that, is when you don't give your penalty killers time to think and time to move. And the way you do that is you compress the zone. Look at my virtual background behind me. I'll scoot over for a little bit. You see that blue line right here. You don't want the puck sitting here on this blue line the whole time. You want to move up. You want to pull this puck up here, and you want your defenseman kind of sitting not necessarily at the tops of the circles. You want them sitting halfway. You want to compress the offensive zone as much as you can. Quick passes, give and goes, keep your PKers spinning, and that's how you'll score goals. And right now, it's stagnant, it's flat. I don't know whether that's on lack of sharpness in passing or lack of creativity, but that has to change completely.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got to change it up, get a little bit of movement going, change up the personnel. If it's stagnant, change up that, put some other people in. You had some people on the second power play that were getting it going. Put Patra on the top line power play, get him up there. These are some of the things that they can do just to get it going a little bit. But all right, guys. Before we wrap, I have to give a shout out, a contractually obligated shout out from today. Um, my buddy Matt, who was at the game with me. I had a lot of fun with him. Thanks for coming by, buddy. But while we were talking about the game, Matt asked me, "Hey, we got to talk about this on the two pad stack tonight." I was like, "Well, number one, you're not on the podcast, but I am. I can talk about it." And then a couple of ladies in front of us were like, "You have a podcast?" So yes, I have a podcast. Katie and Kelly, thanks for liking and subscribing the podcast today after hearing about my podcast. Appreciate it. Stay tuned for more fun content, and hopefully you ladies become big Bruins fans. So I know that was your first game, and I'm glad that you were able to see a few tilts down there and some fun goals. So there's your shout out. But those of you listening, I shout you guys out too. We appreciate you tuning in. Keep in mind that we are once again sticking to this weekly cadence. So Tuesday mornings, make sure you check everywhere that we are releasing episodes. That's Apple Podcasts, that's Spotify. We're going to start releasing full podcast episodes on YouTube as well. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure that you find us on YouTube. That is at Two Pad Stack. That's number 2 PADSTACK. Like and subscribe on YouTube, please. And then we're also putting out content on Instagram. That is the number 2 _ PAD _ stack _ pod. That's our Instagram. So we're going to be putting content out there and on TikTok as well. That's Two Pad Stack Pod, all one word. So keep an eye out for that. Jake is joining me on creating some of the content and getting that stuff out there too. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and see you guys next week. Any closing thoughts or remarks, Jake?
Someday soon, when you guys are watching on YouTube, just look under us. We'll have all those links there. We'll have all the social media. We'll have everything right there. So follow us everywhere. We appreciate your listenership. We appreciate your viewership, present, past, future, and get your coffee ready. First roadie out on the semi West Coast. I guess it's Mountain Time, and hopefully we're back here next week with more smiles on our faces.
Absolutely. Well said. All right, Jake, thanks again. Listeners, we'll see you next week. And until then, catch you later.